Buck Meek, Haunted Mountain album review. Let's chat about it. Hey friends, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning. Here tonight to chat about this album, the third album of singer, songwriter, member of Big Thief, Texas-based musician, Mr. Buck Meek. He has been at it, dropping solo stuff for a while, even though Big Thief has been very prolific in putting out material. He has been, quietly putting out music himself, and, I've been aware of it for some time. I haven't listened to it until, maybe the last year or so. And his self-titled album from 2018, I listened to it and I'm so torn on it. This thing is 10 tracks, 24 minutes, and when it's good, it is really lovely and sweet and summery and incredibly heartfelt. But in such a short time frame, of an album, a lot of incomplete thoughts here, a lot of tracks that feel like they needed to be fleshed out a little bit more. I was really torn on it. Now, a few years later, he dropped his Two Saviors follow-up, and I thought it was okay. The production was certainly better. His singing sounded a little bit more, full-formed, but at the end of the day, I had the same problems. I really did. A lot of the tracks on here that were very good were incredibly blissful and sweet and just made me feel just warm and cozy inside. I actually thought it was just some really decent singer-songwriter folk rock. But then, on the other hand, the uglier side of this album, I don't know, it was just so faceless and bland. It just made me want to go back and listen to some more Big Thief. And I almost didn't review this album entirely, but I did hear the singles leading up to this album. I thought they were really good, actually. So I figured I'd dive in, and lo and behold, while I'm not perfect, far from it, I do think that this is the best solo stuff that Buck has put out, and I feel like his solo stuff actually has its own legs to it now. Mood Ring starts this album off, and 15 seconds in, come on, this is easily some of the best sounding stuff that Buck has put out on his own, especially in the production department. It sounds great. I love the strummed riff, and I love just how sweet and sincere his vocals come off. There's so many layers to this track, and it just makes me feel so happy inside, just so warm and cozy. The atmosphere is stunning. The strummed solo towards the end of this track is really tasteful as well. It's just really nice. This album's title track, Haunted Mountain, I've loved it since it dropped as a single. I love how sunny this is and the upbeat strummed riff. This just sounds like, old school 70s singer-songwriter stuff that I would have grown up with. Buck's performance is super genuine. His heart is in this. Love the use of slide guitar. I can't be in a bad mood listening to this track. And I should point out, this is by far Buck's longest work at over 40 minutes, and it's because of tracks like this. He lets tracks like this breathe and get their own life. This thing goes over 5 minutes, but it's completely justified, just a great tune all around. And Cyclades all around, this is just my favorite track here. This track is genius. I love the grit on display here, just how rugged this track comes off, but Buck does bring things down to a nice medium with just how sweet and charming his vocal performance is. Once again, it's got that old school singer-songwriter storytelling vibe to it, and he does it really well. I think it's the best track here, and when I look back at Buck's early material, which felt very cutting room floor, very incomplete to me, this track, a track like this, does feel complete. And didn't know you then, my goodness, this track is just so sweet on the ears. It's so charming, it's so tender, it's got this youthfulness to it that I really love as well. And it's also the breeziest track here. If you don't mind Buck getting away from the more rugged tracks on this album, definitely give this a shot. And there's just such an innocence and a sense of love, like true love to this track, that just puts a big smile on my face. Now, I do think this is Buck's best solo work, but still, at the end of the day, and this is just maybe just a me problem, I still feel like I'm going back to my old ways of just, some tracks on here, I just would much rather listen to Big Thief. Like Paradise, for example, which has lessened on me since this album's release a couple of weeks ago at this point. On paper, it sounds like a true blue ballad, and you know what? I have no problem with that. But nothing really pops about this track. Yeah, sure, it's super heartfelt. There's nothing wrong with that. But for me, I feel like this track just starts off in like the lowest gear and just does not progress at all. Secret Side, I have a lot of the same issues with. I hate to say it, but some of the softer tunes on this album really do stick out, and not for a good way. This one's a little too light and fluffy for me. Once again, I do appreciate Buck's vocals. The backing vocals are nice as well. But right now, as far as this track's concerned, I'm right back to my, early Buck Meek solo thoughts, where this sounds like a good idea on paper, but it's not really fleshed out. Like, it sounds like the start of something special, but it just doesn't feel complete. Where you're coming from, once again, another ballad on here that sticks out for all the wrong reasons. And once again, I'm gonna, really stress this. I don't think it's completely on Buck. A lot of his performances, even on these tracks I'm not that into, they do stand out as being just solid performances from him. The backing vocals here do not add up, though, at all, and the instrumental is easily one of the uglier ones here. And this track does pick up a little towards the end. It does get a little bit better, but compared to some of this album's best work, this just does not, it's just not up to snuff. And by the end of this track, I'm just ready to turn it off because it's just getting so damn repetitive. So yeah, this album is definitely better than I expected it to be, but it's still far from perfect. Like Undae Dreams, for example, this is easily the coolest track on this album. This is Buck's freak out moment. This is the ruggedest track here. This is him freaking out with a little guitar solo, and it's good. It's one of the shortest tracks here, but it's a complete thought. He's got his heart in it. But Lullabies, on the other hand, easily the sweetest and most tender ballad. Here, I think it's the worst track on the entire album. This is really clumsy. Buck goes on here for almost 5 minutes, kind of bringing in elements of classic nursery rhymes and classic lullabies with short blasts of his own lyrics, which is definitely sweet. I mean, once again, his heart's in the right place, you could definitely say that, but at the end of the day, this just, to me, seems so phoned in and even worse, corny. But Lagrimas, on the other hand, this is the ticket to me, man. As far as a stripped down and ballad-esque track here goes, this is it. It's so full of heart. It's so full of life. The backing vocals do the absolute best job of breaking up, Buck's vocals, and his performance may be his most sincere. It's not the flashiest track here, but man, is it charming. And the Rainbow as a finale, it's short, it's sweet, it's beautiful. It's a little straightforward, but I think that actually plays to this track's strength. This is Buck Meek doing exactly what he knows how to do and doing it really well. Just ends up tying this album up with a nice little bow and just finishing it off on a nice note. Yeah, I still think this is Buck Meek's best solo album. The singles on this thing are fantastic. The more rugged moments go over really well as well. And I don't think I've ever heard his solo stuff just sounding as good as this, production-wise, confidence-wise, songwriting-wise. My major issue on this album is the ballads, who really just... man, some of them are phoned in, and even worse, really corny. And yeah, I still at the end of the day would just kind of rather listen to some of the better Big Thief stuff. But still, as far as a singer-songwriter and alternative country album goes, check this out if you're into the genres. I still think it's Buck's best project. I'm feeling a light 7 on this album, but let me know what you all think down below. If you liked the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, friends.